Everyone, Keenan Gray here from DyeStat.com, bringing you another edition of DyeStat Discussions. I feel like everyone in the entire world is still trying to recover from the Millrose Games that we experienced last week. Such a whirlwind of an experience. And without a doubt, the men's 800 not only had, a great story with Josh Hoey breaking the American record, but you got Cooper Lutkenhaus breaking Josh Hoey's high school national record. And I'm honored to have both of them on here for a DyeStat discussion. So boys, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. I'll start with you, Josh. I mean, this year has been your year. You go back to breaking the 1K American record. You win at New Balance in the 15, and then you do this 800 at Millrose. Just talk about what those three races have kind of meant to you, and just how you've kind of built up this start of the season.
Yeah, so at the end of the outdoor season, which for me ended with the Fifth Avenue Mile, we had been planning on going out to Flagstaff to do an altitude camp. And we were just kind of really excited about how the season had gone for outdoors, but we felt like we left a little bit on the table. Me kind of PRing in a solo race and kind of just thinking like, hey, kind of missing out on the Olympics and some of those bigger races. And so we're like, we'll see how much of this momentum we can just kind of carry through. And so going out to altitude was a huge challenge, but we stayed there for almost 12 weeks or so. And so kind of coming out of that, we had planned sort of the 1,000 as almost a training exercise of like just to see kind of how things had gone. I ran that race in early December just to make sure that things were kind of going okay. And so the 1,000 was pretty enjoyable, just kind of get that confirmation and that validation of like, hey, this effort and training has not gone to waste. And so, yeah, I mean, we weren't able to get as much like training build in the weeks between the 1,000 and 15 and 8, but yeah, we were able to just kind of keep sharpening up and putting through efforts. And so now I'm just excited for USA's.
Yeah, we'll dive back deeper into that 1,000 because I know for you that was a very special race since it was in your home state of Pennsylvania. Cooper, you're bursting on the scene now, man. I mean, people know your name now. Tell me about the moment, just being at Millrose and just the opportunity to race, against guys like Josh, an Olympic finalist, and Bryce Hoppel, an NCAA champion Shane Cohen. I mean, it was a loaded field, but you stepped up to the challenge and delivered in a big way.
Well, it was just awesome to get to race against the pros, and just say it here as well. Just thank you to Millrose and NSAF for the opportunity to get to go out to New York, and it was just an awesome experience overall.
Yeah, the atmosphere was incredible. I mean, you have obviously Grant Fisher breaking the world record that night, and that just kind of like gets things going there. You guys get out on the start line. What was the atmosphere like for you, Josh? Just being at the Millrose Games, it's your first Millrose Games, even though I know it's not your first time at the Armory either.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I'd run at the Armory was for the high school section of the boys' mile at Millrose. So this was my first time in the pro section, and I mean, the atmosphere was just incredible. I'd heard that they had resurfaced the track, but being on it warm-ups the day before it, I could feel a significant difference. And so, yeah, I was just really impressed with that. And I mean, I know that they took a couple measures to try and maximize the atmosphere of the racing. They were kind of pumping humidity into the area. And I don't know if this was part of the plan, and I don't know if other athletes felt this way, but it was quite dark in the room. And so, yeah, it was just like, it just felt like everything was toned towards running fast and being focused. And so I really appreciated that. I mean, it was very loud with the fans as soon as the gun went off. So it was really an amazing meet. So
yeah, when you ran the first time at Millrose Games when you were in high school, what do you remember most about that opportunity?
Yeah, I was a senior, and the race played out sort of odd. We went through I think 800 in like 208 or something. And so I ended up being sort of kicking at the end and running like 407. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how I ran a lot of my races at the time. And so kind of going into this 800, knowing that I probably had to front run to give myself the best chance to win, it was like a really sort of different kind of strategy or tactical effort. And so, yeah.
Crazy to think 407 won that race, and now we got four guys running 4 minutes and winning the Millrose race some odd year later. Cooper, first time racing at the Armory, I believe so. Just how special was that? I mean, this is a place that there are world records that have happened. There are American records that have happened. I mean, I'm sure your dad, who was a collegiate runner himself, has talked to you about the significance and how special the Armory is.
My dad definitely told me a lot about the Armory and all the history that it's had. But even when I was just out there the day before warming up on the track, they had music going. All the pros were out there, and then the track also felt great. You could just see what the energy was going to be like the next day with actual fans there. So I was definitely ready to go the day before.
What was the conversation you kind of had with your dad the night before, or maybe even the morning of? Just kind of just calming the nerves, making sure that you're kind of locked in for your own race, and trying not to blow up when you're racing against these professional athletes.
Well, I don't really get very nervous before races. That one I was definitely nervous for, just racing the pros, but I kind of knew how it was going to play out just watching the past Millrose games, but also just running my own race. Because me and my dad talked for whenever I was told I was actually in the race, just hang on. That was basically the motto the entire 2 weeks before, just hang on.
So the race gets going. I mean, very, very hot pace. I think what the pacer prescribed, I don't know, 51, 52 seconds or so for that first 400, which probably for you, Josh, felt like a walk in the park. Cooper, that was your fastest lap you've ever ran in an open 800. Did you feel the aftermath of it?
Definitely. Opening in 52, I kind of knew that was where I was going to hopefully be coming through 400 because the pace they were supposed to come through 50.5, and I think that's about what they hit. So, I mean, I was in the back of the pack coming through 400, but that's exactly where I wanted to be coming through halfway.
Yeah. Josh, for you talked about how you're kind of trying to work on being out front more now in these races. How did you kind of use this as a learning opportunity? Put yourself out there ahead of Bryce.
Yeah, we got out a bit harder than I may have wanted to. I mean, going through in like 24.4 was pretty much what I went through in at the trials final, and so I knew that I was probably pushing it a little bit, but we've been doing a lot of speed work, and I think that's something that kind of helps pay off there. And so, yeah, I mean, I just tried to settle in after that first initial lap, but I knew, and respectfully to the pacer, he kind of slows down into the finish line, and I kind of knew it's like, hey, I can't really afford to have the race slow down at this point. And so I kind of just kind of pressed through and kept going. But yeah, I didn't really feel the effects too bad of that last or that first 200 going out that bit. And I feel like I probably could have kicked from a little bit farther out, like if I had sort of been able to see how the race was playing out, but kind of being out front, I couldn't really see anything. So it was like I was just kind of trying to anticipate moves behind me as they were happening. So
yeah, did you feel like there was any point during that race that Bryce was just going to fly right by you? Because Bryce has a great kick as well.
Yeah, so I told this story in the media after I ran a race in Falmouth, Massachusetts. I ran the mile and ended up getting clipped in the heels with like 20 meters to go. I was pretty much on pace to run a PR, and so like ever since that happened, I sort of have like nightmares of the last like 20 meters of like sort of getting clipped or someone going by me. So like, yeah, I was trying to anticipate that as well, but yeah.
Especially since and I'm sure you train with you train with your brothers all the time. Is that something you guys work on at practice, where you're pushing yourself last 250, 200 meters to make sure it's like, all right, I'm not going to get out kicked, especially by my little brother?
Yeah, that's definitely happened before. I would say like in the past couple of years that we've been training, there's sort of been a tendency for us to take these intervals where we're going out really hard. And I think noticing a lot of the races last year, especially the 1500s, where they're basically closing in 39, where it's sort of an emphasis on kind of pushing the second half of the rep or running it nearly even. And so that absolutely has been something that we've been working on these last couple of months.
Cooper, totally different race than you're used to. As I said, whether you're going out fast or not, I mean, you were behind. I mean, that's something you probably have never been through. Maybe when you were first starting running in your young days, like what was that like? Just processing like, okay, I'm in last place, but I know I'm still running a very fast time.
I wasn't worried about it at all, honestly, because I knew that's where I was going to be. Because I came through the first 200 and second to last, and then Shane went by me on the back stretch of the second lap. But once I saw I came through, I think 52, I was like, oh, I'll try to push as hard as I can with Born to Go, but I mean, I'm gonna run fast no matter what. So
So to some kind of degree, I know Bryce didn't go past Josh, but when Shane did make that initial move, was that the motivation right there? It's like, all right, now I really don't want to get dead last because I don't want to be that guy that gets dead last.
I wasn't worried about getting dead last. I mean, I was supposed to get last, so just being able to beat one person was just awesome. But also, that's just where I was supposed to end up, so I was happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. You ever thought you'd be an NCAA champion?
Not yet, no.
Give it a couple more years, and then we'll see what else happens down the road. So, 143. I'm looking at the time right here. I believe it was like 143.90 for you, Josh. The goal was to break 144. Kind of just show people that you're in it for the long haul this season. Tell me the emotions when you see a time like that. It's the second time you broke 144, but this time it rewarded you something with an American record.
Yeah, I was pretty overwhelmed. Like when I looked up and saw the board, I mean, I was pretty much all adrenaline that last 50 meters. So like I was just trying to praise God. Like that was kind of my sort of hand signal there. And so yeah, I mean, I was just overcome with emotion. Yeah.
Do you feel like though during a race you know that you're going to that you knew that you broke the record, or is that something that you just kind of process, like as you said, when you cross the finish line?
Yeah. So I mean, my first instinct is always to kind of look at the board after finishing the race, but like I think one of our main focuses of training at altitude this past fall was to build up the strength to kind of like have legs that last 200 meters. And so when I kind of crossed 600 and still had something in my legs, like I knew that it would be a fast time, and I was just kind of worried about winning the race at that point.
Cooper, I knew the ultimate goal was to try to break the national record, which oddly enough was held by this guy right next to you. Um, just when did you kind of realize during the race it's like, all right, I'm right there, and I need to make this last push to get that time?
Well, I knew if I could just stick in the race, I would have a chance at the record. Just being able to hold on as long as possible was kind of the main goal, and then hopefully that time came with it overall.
Yeah.
Because in
Did you know
Texas,
going in that Josh? Did you know that going in Josh had the record?
I did. Me and my dad actually talked about it a lot. How it'd be kind of cool if, say, Josh could get the American record, and then I could hopefully get the high school one.
Josh, at any point at all, did you think that that record would go down? I mean, I know kids are getting fast, but like, do you think it would have ever happened in the race that you broke the American record in?
No, and I would say it was a dream come true. And a lot of people have asked me, like, oh, were you upset that like you lost your record? And wholeheartedly, the answer is no. And the reason is like I'm a really big fan of track and field, and so to basically help progress the sport by like being in a race to facilitate Cooper to set a new standard for people to follow is inspirational, and I think that that's part of like what makes track so special.
When did you two find out that that Cooper had broken your record? I'll
Uh,
ask one of you.
Yeah, I found out by seeing Cooper in the media area after and asking him. And so when he told me 146.8, I just gave him a hug and was like, wow, that's really awesome. Congrats.
Cooper, I mean, what was that interaction like, knowing that you've probably looked up to Josh for however many years you've been doing this running now, and you've ran a little bit faster than him in the high school ranks now.
Well, getting to actually meet him after the race in the media room was really cool, and then also getting to take the photo with him was with him now having the U.S. record and then me having the high school record. I think that was a really cool moment.
Is that a moment right there that you think he's like, I gotta frame this. Like this has got to go somewhere in our house, be up on the wall, and just remember that, regardless of the time. I mean, for both of you guys, I mean that's a really cool opportunity, and you don't get that very often. Can you kind of both speak to that? I'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a special moment, but I hopefully a couple of years from now we'll be able to look back at that picture with a different picture in hand. So yeah, I think Cooper's obviously got a good future ahead of him if they kind of keep up this momentum and support. And so yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to continuing to race Cooper in the future. So
Yeah. I want to ask you both kind of about your background in running, and For Josh, I want to go back to 2018 when you broke that national record, and you were 18 years old. It was in Boston, which everyone knows that track at BU is very, very fast. Just take me back to that day and what it meant for you, just to kind of put your name on in the record books.
Um, yeah, so it was kind of an interesting story for me. I had gotten the flu about 2 weeks before the race, and so I was scheduled to run the mile at the New Balance Grand Prix, and ultimately had to pull out. And so I really didn't run much between in like the 2 weeks leading up to the last chance meet, and I got healthy enough where I was like, hey, might as well kind of go in and put in an effort for the 800. So yeah, I mean, it was. I think I went through in about 51 for that race, and just tried to close as hard as I could. So,
What I guess so you had the flu or some sort of sickness. I mean, did you lose some sort of confidence going into that race, or you're like, what, I'm just going to put that in the back of my head and just go out there and try to do the best I can?
yeah, I think that I go into a lot of my races with that in mind about just kind of going in and trying to do the best I can. And so, yeah, it then became difficult for us to like try and figure out almost how to then continue building fitness into the outdoor season, because um, not much of my training seemed to be like, oh, he's going to run this well. And so we kind of struggled with the aftermath of that, especially kind of in collaboration with my coach at the time. But I think that, yeah, it was still a cool memory.
So I guess then what was like kind of the biggest thing you kind of learned from what sounds like was not an ideal senior outdoor season, and then of course like everyone assumed you were going to go to the University of Oregon, and then you make the decision to turn pro instead.
Yeah, I think that my family has always believed in me, and I've kind of believed in myself when it comes to having the talent and the work ethic and the drive necessary to be successful. And so that's why we took that opportunity to go professional right away. And like, unfortunately, it didn't pan out the way that we had hoped. But like, I am really encouraged by a lot of what I've heard from Cooper, and what I've seen from his training and racing online. And so I think it's absolutely possible to continue to improve, like just from a human physiology standpoint. And so I'm really excited to see what they're able to um, do over these next couple of years.
Yeah, and whether that's that road leads to going to college or turning pro, if that's a decision you end up making, which again, at the end of the day, it's what's best for you. So Cooper, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you, at least you and I have had an interaction at Brooks PR twice, because I know you won the junior 800 when you were in the eighth grade, and I think I want to say you ran like 153 or something as an eighth grader, something crazy like that. And then last year, of course, you come back as a high school freshman. You set the freshman class record. I think you ran maybe the number one time in the country. I could be completely off about that. But tell people out there kind of like what your background in running is, and how you got into the sport.
Well, I kind of started running. My dad was a high school coach at the high school I'm at right now. He is now in a different job, but he was a high school coach. So I kind of grew up around running, watching it my entire life, same as my two older brothers. And my oldest brother, George, is now swimming in college. My middle brother, Drew, is running in college right now. So we kind of an athlete background from also coaching. So that's a big reason that I chose track. Was I grew up watching it, and it's kind of something that I've always wanted to do, even when I was younger.
When did you realize track was going to be your sport?
Kind of realized after I ran 153 and 48 in the quarter after my eighth grade year, going into freshman year, because I did every sport in middle school, and then after I ran those two races, I realized me and my dad were talking about it. We don't really want to screw this up, so let's just stick with what's worked the best so far.
Yeah, and I think probably the right decision so far. Josh, what do you remember what you were kind of running when you were an eighth grader? I can't imagine probably 153 or 48 for a quarter, because that's very, very fast for a 14, 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, in eighth grade, I went to a private school, and so I was actually able to run on the with the high school team. And so I was running a lot of cross country actually. And so like, yeah, I went to the regional meet and stuff, and I actually didn't run track my 8th grade year. I played baseball, so yeah.
So when did you make that transition from baseball to track, and then of course stuck with it through since?
Yeah, going into high school, even when I was playing baseball my 8th grade year, it was my parents' sort of way of like making sure that I didn't burn out or kind of get into things too early. And that was the predominant view of the time. I absolutely think that with modern training knowledge, like it is possible to kind of get into track early and continue to improve, like I said. But yeah, so I was always sort of guided towards running track, and it's something that I liked because I was good at it, frankly. And so like that's why I stuck with it. But yeah.
What position did you play in baseball?
I was a center fielder and a pitcher.
And well, I honestly, center fielder makes sense because you got that speed out there. I mean, did you love playing baseball? Like, is baseball one of your favorite sports to watch outside of track and field?
Yeah, I'm definitely a big Phillies fan, and I was certainly a better center fielder than I was a pitcher because I would just go on the mound and throw as hard as I could, no matter what. So I wasn't very accurate, but I could throw hard. that was it. Yeah.
Hey, I can't imagine what you were like back in 2008 when the Phillies beat the Yankees for the World Series title.
We were running around the living room. Yeah, I mean, we were very young at the time, but yeah.
And now you guys got Bryce Harper trying to get you guys back to the promised land as well. So
absolutely,
Cooper,
it's been tough these last.
Cooper, what sports did you kind of take on? Like, so I know you mentioned that your siblings did swimming. Maybe there was basketball, football in the mix. Like, what were the sports that you did? You said you did a lot when you were in middle school.
Middle school, I did football, basketball, track, cross country, and then a little bit of wrestling in 7th grade year. Wasn't a fan of it, but football was probably my favorite sport until track season hit, because cross country wasn't a fan of in middle school. Just never really liked the long distances, but once track came and I got to run the 400 and 800, those were favorite events to run.
What did you play in football?
I was a QB.
Okay, gotcha. What was your favorite football team, actually?
The Cowboys.
Cowboys? Cowboys, who? So you're a big Dak Prescott fan then?
You could say so.
Yeah. Seem a little conflicted about that one.
Yeah, we didn't have a really good year this year, so maybe next year.
Yeah, that's okay though. So, but obviously now you both have taken on this sport and has carried you, to greater heights within, the last Joel or Josh, I'll say for you, like, 7 years. Cooper, you're just getting started. What's Josh? I'll ask you this: like, who was someone you kind of looked up to when you got into the sport and kind of idolized growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. My idol growing up was Matthew Centrowitz. So yeah, I watched pretty much every one of his races, and there was actually a time where I was being coached by Matt Centrowitz Sr., and so I got to meet Matthew a couple times, and he's still one of my favorite people. So,
what about Matt Centrowitz? Just kind of just like, you know what, I want to run like him. I want to be like him because he's just that guy right now in American distance running.
Yeah, his racing tactics were always so inspired, and to me, he was just one of the toughest people that I would see racing. So I always appreciated that and about him.
Still love that gold medal in 2016 at Rio. That was the best race ever. One of the slower in the 1500 in Olympic history compared to what we saw this last year. Cooper, who was a runner you idolized growing up? Maybe it was the guy. Maybe it's the guy we're talking to right now.
Well, when I was younger, I didn't really watch much track and field, but whenever I did, Clayton Murphy was at a super young age. I watched a lot of Clayton Murphy, but now, I mean, you name a bunch of people. Josh right here, Bryce, Brandon Miller, Josh Kerr. Those are just a few of the names.
Yeah. When you watch those guys, who do you learn so much from different them? Like, Josh is a very aggressive kicker. Bryce likes to go to the front. Is there different things you learn from all those guys?
Definitely, just seeing, especially depending on what kind of race setting they're in. If it's the Olympic trials, if it's, I don't know, the Diamond League, just depending on which race it is, they all race differently, but I think in every way that they work.
Mm-hmm. So now that you guys have seen each other race and you've competed against each other, what's your thoughts about each other? Josh, I'll start with you. Just, this is a guy that's 16 years old, He's running 146 right now. He's got all the time in the world right now. Not that you don't. I know you're still in your prime right now, but I mean, this guy is running at times that we haven't seen in high school before.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I kind of noticed about Cooper is like he has a very long and powerful stride. Like I think it's very much suited for middle distance running, and I think that he could even move up in distance if he wanted to. And so I kind of see Cooper as someone who will hopefully develop over these next couple of years to kind of get that strength side to accompany some of his 400-meter speed. And I think that there's a lot of possibilities with that.
Did you think when you were at his age, it's like, all right, I'm just going to be an 800. Maybe I might be a 1500 guy. Like that's just what I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, when I was a sophomore, I was sort of saw myself more as like a 2 mile person, which is kind of the terminology at the time of like a 5K 1500 guy.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't kind of until my junior year that I sort of started focusing a bit more on the 800. And so like that's why I've sort of had an inclination to try and build that strength and move up at some point,
Mhm.
or at least do both. And so I should have said this earlier, one of my inspirations is honestly Jake Whiteman, because like he's someone that's been able to accomplish both at a stage that probably hasn't been seen in 20, 30 years. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Would you have kind of fanboyed when Jake Whiteman were to race in that New Balance? Because he was scheduled to race in the New Balance meet with you.
Yeah, I've met Jake a couple times. We're friendly, and so but obviously he's inspired a lot of our sort of trading ideology. So yeah.
Yeah. So with that kind of being said, you know, Cole's expanded his horizons as a 1500 guy. I mean, could we see you in the future, you know, testing the waters in the 3K? Could we see you in the 5K? Is that something that is of interest to you?
Yeah, I'm definitely just going to get through this year first, kind of with
Mhm.
the sort of the training philosophy that we have now before even making those decisions. But I definitely think that um, depending on what we decide to focus on, like we sort of have potential either way.
Mhm. Cooper, just listening to what Josh just said here, kind of just like, you know, expanding your horizons and expanding your ability to be a versatile type of runner. I mean, I know you're young right now, but like, I mean, is at some point in your career, do you feel like, yeah, let's see what I can try to throw down for a 5,000 or a 3,200 race, which I know is not your necessarily probably your favorite, but at some point though, I can imagine that like you want to try that.
I don't know if I'd like to try the 5K, but I definitely think later in college or just whatever it is, the 1500 will probably be my main event just from talking with people I know. But right now, just hopefully try to stick in the 4 and the 8 as long as possible, and then slowly start moving up each year.
Yeah. Do you think though, by the time you graduate from high school, that the 1,600 will be in your wheelhouse?
I think so, but I think in high school for right now, the 800 will always be my main event, and then once those later years hit, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Josh, when you were in high school, was there one particular event that you didn't run that you wish you kind of did?
Um, Not necessarily. I do wish that I had maybe given the 1,000 a bit more of a chance in high school, but there's so many. There's It's such a limited opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the 1,000, Cooper has an opportunity coming up here on his home track. He's going to try to go after the high school national record in the 1,000, which was set by Marcus Riley just this last year. I think the time is like 2:21 or something like that. So, you know, kind of in preparation for that, Cooper, um, what's your mind at right now? Especially, I mean, you're coming off such a high moment at the Millrose Games. You got all the momentum in the world.
I'm just excited to race again. That I was talking to my coach about it. I was like, after Millrose, I just want to race, but I know they have a plan for me, which is just slowly keep building as hopefully the season will go throughout summer. So
Mhm.
stay just locked in, if you'd like to say that, and
Mhm.
then just keep going.
Yeah. How cool would it be, you know, with Josh having already broken the American record in the 1,000 and the 800, Cooper breaks not only just the national record in the 800, but also in the 1,000, which I know will be outdoor. But like, I mean, how cool would that be for you guys to, you know, kind of share that with each other? One of you can answer.
Yeah, I think that it's indicative of how middle distance is progressing. And so I don't think either of my times will stand for very long, and whether I get another shot at them or someone else does. And I might even say the same for Cooper. And so I just think that we're at sort of the beginning of a new age of training, and when it comes to middle distance, not nearly at the end.
Cooper?
I kind of have to agree with Josh on that one. Not sure if there's much to add on it.
Sure. Josh, you got the U.S. Indoor Championships coming up this next week at Staten Island. I know you're going to be running the 800 and trying to qualify for that first World Championship team. Because indoor last year, you missed it by one spot. Trials, you missed it by one spot. Just how hungry are you and excited just to get out to Staten Island and try to punch your ticket for China this year?
Yeah, I mean it's been the sole goal of the indoor season. So these past 3 races was a good way to kind of demonstrate some of our fitness and our potential going into outdoors. But none of it will matter much to us if we aren't able to kind of compete at World indoors and then kind of keep going outdoors. So it's all part of it.
Yep, exactly. And that's the goal for you for the next couple of weeks, is try to make that team for USA's. Cooper, I can assume you're going to head back to New York for NIN. Are you going to try to double the 8 and 400, or is it just going to be the 8?
No, just do the 800 at NIN.
So just wrapping things up here. So again, really appreciate both you guys' times for hopping on here. Best of luck for you, Josh, at US Indoors. Cooper, good luck in that high school record attempt in the 1K. So really appreciate your time, guys. Best of luck the rest of 2025.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.